In this dense field, when nothing is plain or sure, our very being seems to us questionable. Our life, a vague experiment, the soul, a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world. The earth, a brute mechanic accident, a net of death in which by chance we live.
Well, he is certainly describing this human condition on earth. And he even says that our life is some kind of vague experiment. We really don't know
Mhm.
why we're here until we take up the path of yoga. Only then can we really know, can we eventually rise above this body, this vital, this mind, into those higher planes of existence, beginning with the higher mind and ending with the overmind. So until then,
Mhm.
our very being seems to us questionable. Not only that, but our life a vague experiment. What is it all about? But now I see on the YouTube hundreds and hundreds of people explaining experience, near-death experiences. You can see so
Mm.
much coming up. You just type in near-death experience, and the page will be filled with very, very
Yes.
real people. Not nothing is faked here. So the
Mm.
soul here seems to be a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world. Yes, this world is ignorant because it is a world that's built on duality and not unity.
Mm.
See, it's built on false premises. We think these things are
Mhm.
all real, but they're not real at all. Of course, Buddha said they
Right.
were that life was illusionary. But Sri Aurobindo says, no, it's
Mm.
not illusionary. It's real, and we have to rise above this first section to see it in a totally different light, where sin no longer exists, our sense of morality no longer exists, our sense of death is no longer there. But until we can rise into that, it certainly seems a strange, ignorant world. And
Mhm.
the earth a brute mechanic accident. A mechanic here is a routine, an automatic accident, something that just happened.
Mhm.
Brute, of course, brute here is resembling something cruel or savage, a brute
Yes.
mechanic
Mm.
accident.
Mm.
And then he ends it with these lines, a net of death, in which, by chance, we live. Because we do live in a net of death. We're all going to die until that time comes when we can begin to transform the body and the vital and the mind.
Mm.
Now he's going to continue on because he's not finished telling us about this yet.
Okay. I'll continue, Narad, sir. All we have learned appears a doubtful guess. The achievements done, a passage or a phase, whose farther end is hidden from our sight, a chance happening, or a fortuitous fate.
Fortuitous, fortuitous, four beats on fortuitous.
Fortuitous. Okay. Okay.
So he's
Fortuitous.
continuing with this very important theme that in this life, until we rise into a higher state of consciousness, everything we've learned appears a doubtful guess. We're hearing this now from science. This Webb telescope has broken everything open. This guy who's always talking there, he says we may have to redo everything
Mhm.
because now we're seeing galaxies on galaxies when we thought they were just black holes. So
Yeah.
all we have learned appears a doubtful guess. The achievement done is simply a passage or a phase whose farther end is hidden from our sight. And then he's after that comma, he's going to tell us it's just a chance happening or a fortuitous fate. Fortuitous is lucky,
Okay.
lucky,
Mhm.
accidental, lucky. So that's what he said so far. Now he's going to give us one more line and then go into something much deeper.
Okay. Out of the unknown, we move to the unknown.
And
Ever uh-huh.
we can all say that. We can all say that out of the unknown we move to the unknown.
To the unknown.
We don't know
Yes.
what's going to happen tomorrow.
Hmm.
We have
Very
faith.
true.
Faith
Hmm.
is faith is good, but we we come out of the unknown and we move to the unknown.
To the unknown.
Now he
Hmm.
begins a new phase, and we have to take this slowly.
Okay. Ever surround our brief existence here, grey shadows of unanswered questionings, the dark, inconscious, signless mysteries stand up unsolved behind faith's starting line.
Oh, interesting, very interesting. So let's go through that. We know the inconscient. We've talked about the inconscient. Sri Aurobindo
Yes.
writes in a letter that they may be mere empty abstractions and can be dismissed as irrelevant jargon if one has not come in collision with them or plunged into their dark and bottomless reality. And then very rarely he speaks in the first person, and he says here, but to me they are realities, concrete powers whose resistance is present everywhere and at all times in its tremendous and boundless mass. So, ever surround our brief existence here these gray
Mhm.
shadows of unanswered questionings, the dark, inconscious, signless mysteries, because very difficult to get a sign out of the inconscient, and just what he's told us already.
Mhm.
And then he
Mhm.
says, all these things stand up, in other words, appear before us unsolved,
Mhm.
behind faith's starting line. Well, faith's starting line is the starting line that we begin every time we take a new birth.
Mhm.
We have the fate of the past, we have the fate of our present life, and we have all of those things to overcome. But all of
Mhm.
this stands up unsolved behind, note behind faith's starting line. Faith's starting line is when we take birth again. So now
Okay.
we're going to go from there, and he has these beautiful lines.
Okay. An aspiration in the night's profound seed of a perishing body and half-lit mind uplifts its lonely tongue of conscious fire towards an undying light forever lost. Only it hears sole echo of its call, the dim reply in man's unknowing heart, and meets, not understanding why it came or for what reason is the suffering here, God's sanction to the paradox of life and the riddle of the immortal's birth in time.
So he's got quite a few things here. He's got the paradox,
Mm-hmm.
something that seems like a riddle or a
Uh-huh.
puzzle. And then he has the riddle. He uses the word riddle also. So we go
Yeah.
back to this and we see what he's telling us now. He's telling us, first of all, in this profound, this very deep part of something, this vast depth, you could say. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and there is an aspiration in the night's profound.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that? Seed of a perishing body and half lit mind. That's us. Up
Yes.
its lonely tongue of conscious fire. That lonely tongue of conscious fire is the beginning of Agni in us, the beginning of
Oh,
the divine spark in us.
okay.
So that divine spark uplifts its lonely. See, he calls it a tongue of fire. And when we see a good fire, we see it's like tongues coming up.
The tongues. Yes, yes, yes. So beautiful. Yes.
So yeah, and so this aspiration is happening in the night's profound. It is a seed. It's not the real living thing yet. It's just a seed of a perishing body and half-lit mind. It's uplifting its lonely tongue of conscious fire towards what? Towards an undying light forever lost. Well, it seems to us to be forever lost when we're in that lower consciousness. Notice he has a semicolon at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Very important because only it hears sole echo of its call, the dim reply in man's unknowing heart, and meets, not understanding why it came, or for what reason is the suffering here, God's sanction to the paradox of life and the riddle of the immortal's birth in time. So it meets what? It meets what it doesn't understand, it
Highlight.
doesn't know what reason it is. Why is there suffering here on this earth?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The moment we rise above this plane of existence, there we see that there is no suffering. This is
Hmm.
so, but we can't understand it with the mind, and we have to let it go now. It needs God's sanction, God's approval to the
Mm-hmm.
paradox of life, to the riddle of life. And
Mm-hmm.
you can call it also an anomaly, a puzzle. And the riddle
Mm-hmm.
of the immortal's birth in time. So, why does the immortal take birth in time? Well, Sri Aurobindo tells
Mm-hmm.
very clearly in the Life Divine, in the synthesis, that if the immortal, if the divine did not come down into a human body and go through all the problems that humans have to go through, we could not understand him. One
Wow.
glimpse of his light would shatter us completely. And this is what we call the divine holocaust, the descent of the
Mm-hmm.
divine in his full consciousness, reducing that consciousness more and more and more and more and more till it comes into life and even into matter. And that's why even the stone and the atom has that consciousness in it. It's so beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Yes, so beautiful. You can read a few more lines and then you read the whole thing.
Sure, that. So, Along a path of eon serpentine, in the coiled blackness of a nascent course, the earth goddess coils across the sand of time.
Sands, plural.
Oh, sands of time. Yeah.
So the earth goddess is, we could say, Prakriti, and we can also
Mm-hmm.
say nature, because it's nature who's doing all this work. Nature is creating and destroying things simultaneously at every moment. That's
Mm-hmm.
her focus of the divine force. It's not the divine who is doing these things, it's nature or the earth goddess. So we see that along the path of aeons serpentine, a serpentine is like the movement of a snake, the winding
Uh-huh.
course like a serpent's motion. Serpentine,
Mm-hmm.
serpentine. In the
Okay.
coiled blackness of her nescient course. Nescience is absence of knowledge or awareness. And nescience in nature is the complete self ignorance. Nature is
Mm-hmm.
not aware, but she's
Mm-hmm.
creative. And therefore she toils, she works across the sands of time. Very beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll
Narad
read.
sir, is this something to do with the Kundalini that they say it sits at the back, the tailbone of
The
our
chakras?
backbone? Uh-huh.
No, not doesn't have to
Kundalini
do with it.
chakra. No, not that.
Not at
Okay.
all.
Okay. Okay.
Along the path of eons serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent course.
In this dense field, when nothing is plain or sure, our very being seems to us questionable, our life a vague experiment, the soul a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world, the earth a brute mechanic accident, a net of death in which by chance we live. All we have learned appears a doubtful guess, the achievement done, a passage or a phase whose farther end is hidden from our sight, a chance happening or a fortuitous,
Fortuitous.
fortuitous, it
Fortuitous.
is, yeah, a chance happening or a fortuitous fate out
Yes,
of the
but
unknown.
I wouldn't drop your voice on fate because it's a
Okay,
chance happening or it's a fortuitous fate. It's not
a
fate.
chance hap. Okay,
Now,
a
before we,
chance.
in those five lines, you had chance twice. And the first time you pronounced it in the British way, and now you're pronouncing it in the American way. So
Okay,
you decide which way you prefer
okay,
and start
okay,
again, a net of death.
okay. Uh, a net of death in which by chance we live. All we have learned appears a doubtful yes. The achievement done, a passage or a phase whose farther end is hidden from our sight.
Yeah, you don't want to drop phase. You don't want to drop your voice on that because it's a passage or a phase whose farther end. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah, you see?
okay.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Achievement
Yep.
done.
The achievement done, a passage or a phase whose farther end is hidden from our sight, a chance happening or a fortuitous fate. Out
Okay.
of the unknown, we
Yep.
move to
Slow
the
down.
unknown.
Slow down. Now, that's a beautiful line. We don't want to rush that line.
Okay, okay. Out of the unknown, we move to the unknown. Ever surround our brief existence here, grey shadows of unanswered questionings, the dark, inconscient, signless mysteries stand up unsolved behind fate's starting line, an aspiration in the night's profound seed of a perishing body and half-lit mind uplifts its lonely tongue of conscious fire towards an undying light forever lost. Only it hears sole echo of its call, the dim reply in man's unknowing heart, and meets, not understanding why it came or for what reason, is the suffering here, God's sanction to the paradox of life and the riddle of the immortal's birth in time. Along a path of eons serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nescient course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time.
And we read it
Yes, Narad
once.
sir.
All right. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
Narad sir. Thank you, Narad sir.
You understood it all right, huh?
Yes, yes, I understood it. I'll just practice it one more time. Yes.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much, Narad sir.
Namaste.
Yes. Take care. Namaste.